Hey folks, I hope that you guys are doing pretty well. So today is Sunday, the 23rd of March 2025, and in today's video, I'm going to decipher for you in the book of Jeremiah, chapter 23, verses 3 to 8 only. Okay, this is mainly because verses 1 and 2 are under the law. Okay, and then verses 9 all the way to verse 40, this is a very long chapter, are also under the law. Okay. So there's no point in me deciphering all these verses under the law because you can actually read them for yourself and you can make a lot of sense out of them. But because then in verses 3 to 8, we have current prophecies and also prophecies for the millennial kingdom, then I think it's important that I actually talk about these prophecies, in Jeremiah chapter 23. Okay. Now, as always, I do have a program here. Okay. And regarding these prophecies in Jeremiah chapter 23, then verses 3 and 4 are for the church age, and verses 5 to 8 are for the millennial kingdom. Okay, now I'm gonna try and keep this video short so it doesn't take too long to upload. Now on verse 3 it reads, "And I will gather the remnant of my flock out of all countries where I have driven them, and I will bring them again to their folds, and they shall be fruitful and increase." Okay. So this is a prophecy for the church age, okay? And it came to pass when Israel became a nation in 1948. So this prophecy can be linked, pardon me, to Isaiah chapter 11, verses 11 and 12, Isaiah chapter 66, verses 8 and 9, and Ezekiel chapter 37, verses 12 to 14. In other words, the dry bones prophecy, okay? So, when you read this verse 3, you're probably wondering, and how it reads, and I will gather the remnant of my flock out of all countries where I have dreamed. And then you probably think to yourselves, does this might have anything to do with, the tribe of Judah, returning back to rebuild, the second temple in the days of Nehemiah, Zerubbabel, and the high priest Joshua? No, not really. When you read the following verse in context, okay, then it reads, "And I will set up shepherds over them, which shall feed them, and they shall fear no more." Now, the fact that it says here on verse 4, "they shall fear no more," okay, that tells you that this verse 3 has to be for the church age because don't forget that when Israel was building the second temple, under Nehemiah, that they were building that temple with a lot of fear, you know. And so this is why when you read in context verse 4, this prophecy here on verse 3 is actually a church age prophecy, okay? So yeah, just to regather here, and I will gather the remnant of my flock out of all countries where I have dreamed them and so on. Think of Israel becoming a nation in 1948. And I just told you that it's linked to Isaiah chapter 11, verses 11 and 12, Isaiah 66, 8 and 9, and Ezekiel 37, verses 12 to 14. So let us just quickly maybe go to Isaiah 66, verses 8 and 9, just to show you an example, since it's just here. So go to Isaiah chapter 66, verses 8 and 9. Who has heard such a thing? Who has seen such things? Shall the earth be made to bring forth in one day? That's Israel becoming a nation in one day in 1948. Or shall a nation be born at once? For as soon as Zion travailed, she brought forth her children. And on verse 9, shall I bring to the birth and not cause to bring forth, said the Lord? Shall I cause to bring forth and shut the womb, said thy God? So this is actually Israel becoming a nation in 1948. Okay, now I don't want to keep this video too long, but if you study the prophecies here in Isaiah, also chapter 11, verses 11 and 12, and Ezekiel 37, verses 12 and 14, it's all very similar, okay? Now, verse 4, it reads, "And I will set up shepherds over them, which shall feed them. It's very difficult to find, other prophecies in the Bible which says that, since Israel became a nation in 1948, that shepherds over them shall feed them. Okay, and then it reads, and they shall fear no more, nor be dismayed, neither shall they be lacking, said the Lord. Now, the nearest prophecy that I found, which kind of like talks like it's saying as if shepherds over them shall feed them, is actually in Isaiah 66:11. Okay, which is that you might suck and be satisfied with the breast of her consolations. This is a figure of speech. It's a figure of speech in that it's spiritual bread plus physical bread or nourishment. Okay, so you have to do a fair bit of thinking when you try and link this prophecy to Isaiah 66:11, that you must suck and be satisfied with the breast of or consolations. Okay, so consolations is about the spiritual bread, if you like. Okay, but then the next bit it says that you might milk out. Okay, so in other words, the physical bread or the nourishment. Okay, and be delighted with the abundance of her glory. So the fact that he's saying there's going to be abundance of her glory, it also means that there's going to be spiritual bread and also physical bread for nourishment. Okay, so read the prophecy in Isaiah 66:11. Give it a bit of a good think. It's a spiritual and physical bread prophecy, if you like. Now, you can also link it to the fig tree generation. When you see, if you go to Matthew 24 verses 32, which talks about the fig tree Israel. When you see the fig tree tender, they know that the time is coming, for the rapture. Okay, so the fact that in Matthew 24:32 we read that the fig tree or Israel is tender, it's already telling us, uh, what Isaiah is trying to say here. That Israel has spiritual bread and also physical bread. Okay, in other words, that the fig tree has been nourished. Okay, to a point where it's now tender. Okay, and then soon we're gonna have the rapture of the church. Okay, so for verse 4, then you can actually link it to, just to recap, to Isaiah 66:11. Have a bit of a think about it, and also Matthew 24 verses 32. Okay, the fig tree being tender, being fully nourished, spiritually and physically as well. Okay. Now, on verse 5, okay, it reads, "Behold, the days come, saith the Lord, that I will raise unto David a righteous branch." That's Jesus coming, to take over his Davidic throne, okay, for the millennial kingdom. So, verse 5 here now it's actually a millennial kingdom prophecy, okay? And a king shall reign, meaning Jesus, and prosper, and shall execute judgment and justice in the earth. Now, this prophecy here on verse 5 in Jeremiah chapter 23 is a huge prophecy. This is about Jesus' second coming to be the King of Israel. Let me move over the page. Okay. And this prophecy in Jeremiah is linked to a very large and greatly numerous prophecies found in the books of the prophets and Psalms. Okay, so this prophecy or this verse 5 in Jeremiah chapter 23 is actually linked to some examples as in Isaiah 9:7, Zechariah 14 verses 1 to 4, Joel 3 verses 1 and 2, Revelation 19 verses 11 to 15, and Psalm 97. And these prophecies here and these examples, they cover how Jesus is going to come back, as a king of Israel, and out of his garment shall be no end. Okay. And he's going to be performing all those judgments. If you read Joel chapter 3, verse 2, the judgment in the valley of Jehoshaphat, Revelation 19, verses 11 to 15, Jesus sharp sword, and so on. Psalm 97, which is about the millennial kingdom. So this verse 5 in Jeremiah chapter 23 is actually huge. These are just some examples, but it's linked to so many other prophecies. Okay, verse 6. In his days, Judah, okay, shall be saved. This is when Jesus comes back. So this is also a millennial kingdom prophecy. And Israel shall dwell safely. Have a look at Jeremiah chapter 31, verse 17, and also Jeremiah chapter 33, verses 14. Okay, so it reads, and in his days Judah shall be saved upon the return of Jesus' second coming, and Israel shall dwell safely. And this is his name, whereby he shall be called the Lord our righteousness. Now, this prophecy here on verse 6, it's very wide. It's as large as verse 5 in that this prophecy is linked to also Ezekiel chapter 48. And why is this? The entire chapter 48, because we are going to see the restoration of Israel and also Judah. Okay? So this prophecy is linked to Ezekiel chapter 48, or the restoration of Israel, with the land partitions for the 12 tribes of Israel, the new city of Jerusalem, and the new fourth temple, with its 12 gates, with the names of the 12 children of Jacob or Israel, or the 12 tribes of Israel. Okay? Now, this verse 6 is also linked to the many prophecies in the Psalms about the righteous judgment of Jesus. For example, Psalm 9 verse 8, Psalm 58 verse 10, Psalm 67 verse 4, Psalm 96 verse 10, Psalm 98 verse 9, etc., 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 because I have deciphered many of these psalms already, okay, and many more than these. So, when you read this prophecy, it says that in his days Judah shall be saved, and Israel shall dwell safely. Have a look at these prophecies here in Jeremiah 31, verse 17, and Jeremiah 33, verse 14, okay? But when you read this prophecy, it's not just that it's linked to one prophecy or two. This prophecy is so huge that it's actually linked to the entire Ezekiel chapter 48 in context, okay? And also to all these prophecies about the righteous judgment that Jesus is going to perform. Have a look at all these prophecies in these Psalms, okay? Now, verses 7 and 8 are part of each other. Now, why is this? Because, let me just get line the page here correctly. Because on verse 7, it starts reading, therefore, behold, the days come, saith the Lord, that thou shalt no more say, pardon me, the Lord liveth, which brought up the children of Israel out of the land of Egypt. And then, we got a comma here. And on verse 8 it continues, on verse 8, but the Lord liveth, which brought up and which led the seed of the house of Israel out of the north country and from all countries whither I have driven them, and they shall, this is also a millennial kingdom, and they shall dwell in their own land. So this prophecy is actually linked to Jeremiah 31, verses 8 and 9. So this is also a millennial kingdom because what's happening here, okay, in verses 7 and 8 in this prophecy here, which both are tied together, is that how it says in verse 8, but the Lord liveth, which brought up and which led the seed of the house of Israel, out of the north country and so on. He's bringing them back. Why is this? Because if you look on Luke 21, when the abomination of desolation happens, okay, then the Jewish people are going to have to flee into the wilderness, okay? And so, and many will be taken prisoners, okay? So head over to Luke 21, okay? And it reads, and when you shall see Jerusalem compassed with armies, then know that the desolation thereof is high. The abomination of desolation according to Daniel 9:27. Then let them which are in Judea flee to the mountains, and let them which are in the midst of it depart out, and let not them that are in the countries enter thereinto, for these are the days of vengeance, and that all things which are written might be fulfilled. But woe unto them that are with a child, and to them that give suck in those eyes, for there shall be great distress in the land, and wrath upon these people. Okay, and a lot of people shall fall by the edge of the sword, and shall be led away captive into all nations. Okay, so the fact that Luke is telling us this, okay, that Jewish people are going to be led captive into all nations, then when you read this prophecy in Jeremiah chapter 23, verses 7 and 8, which are part of each other, okay, then Jesus is going to bring them back, out of the north country and from all the countries where I have driven them, according to that Luke 21, which I just showed you, the three people who have to flee, okay? So, uh, and it's linked to Jeremiah 31, verses 8 and 9, because it describes the situation pretty well. So let us quickly look at Jeremiah 31. Jeremiah 31, we're here now, folks. Bear with me one second, then we'll finish up. So, Jeremiah 31, verses 8 and 9. Okay. Give me one sec, folks. Over the page. So, Jeremiah 31, 8 and 9. Behold, I will bring them from the north country, okay, and gather them from the coast of the earth, and with them the blind and the lame, the woman with the child, and her that travaileth with child together. A great company shall return thither. They shall come with weeping and with supplications, which I will lead them, okay, and I will cause them to walk by the rivers of waters in a straight way, wherein they shall not stumble. For I am a father to Israel, and Ephraim is my firstborn. So just remember, I will bring them from the north country. What does Jeremiah 23, verse 8 say? Okay, so chapter 23, and but the Lord liveth, which brought up and which led the seed of the house of Israel out of the north country. See, and from all the countries where I have driven them, and they shall dwell in their own land. Okay, so this is the millennial kingdom. Okay, so that is it, folks. Verse 8 is linked to Jeremiah 31, verses 8 and 9, and then verses 9 all the way to, this is a long chapter, all the way to verse 40 are actually under the law. So if you read them, you will know that they are under the law. Okay, now verses 1 and 2 are also under the law, but verses 3 and 4 are for the church age, and verses 5 to 8 are for the millennial kingdom. Okay, don't get confused. Verses 1 and 2 is actually under the law, because in the times of Jeremiah, the pastors didn't do a good job of looking after the Jewish people. That's why the first temple went down. Okay, so verses 3 and 4 are for the church age, and then 5 to 8 for the millennial kingdom. All right, folks. Maybe I'm just gonna give you a quick scan of the program here, and then I'll finish up. So if you do a Bible study on this, you can always rewind, and pause the video and things like that, to study this more thoroughly yourselves, That's why when it comes to deciphering Bible prophecies, you really have to give it a lot of thought, and you have to try and match prophecies with other prophecies as well, So that is it, folks. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you all later.